Shalom Aleichem Internet, this is Rabbi Sender Gajzinski, and here is the weekly Torah Byte. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Vayishlach, and he sent. This is Yaakov sending angels after being away from his brother for over 20 years to see where is Esav in terms of his relationship with Yaakov. Is he still burning angry for the fact that Yaakov had swept the blessings out from under him, or has he forgiven Yaakov? And so Yaakov sends the angels return, and they say, Banu el achicha Esav, v'gam halech likrasecha v'arbar meot ish imo. We've come to your brother Esav, and he's also on his way to greet you, but he's coming to greet you with 400 men. Most likely it's not to wish you happy birthday. And so Yaakov prepares for this confrontation. And the Medrash lays it out based on what the verses tell us, that Hiskin Atzmo l'shlosha dvarim, he prepared himself in 3 different ways, l'tfila, u'ledoron, u'lemelchama. He prayed to God and asked for God's mercy, especially after the fact that he believes that he might have used up most of his merits in the fact that he had been under 20 years under his uncle Lavan, who was particularly wily and a swindler, and he had come out successful with a family and with great wealth. And he prepared himself with gifts for his brother Esav, an entire parade of animals and slaves, etc., to hopefully turn Esav's heart. And last but not least, if all else fails, the Milchama, for war, in which he divided his camp into 2. If Esav attacks one, there will be the other, as he set up basically strategic battle positions. And yet the verse the Medrash lays it out, Hiskin Atzmo, he had to establish himself, he had to, in a sense, it took effort to establish these 3 strategies, the tefillah, of prayer, of gifts, and of war. And the reason is because in general, as a human being, we have particular tendencies or predispositions that ends up being the particular way that we approach any situation and we seek a solution. And generally we'll debate our position and try to establish that this is the best way or the best strategy. Why? Not necessarily because it's the best way, because it's the way that suits our predispositions and our attributes best. We make an argument because this is the way we see it, and not necessarily, again, because it's the best option. Yaakov's greatest strength was that everything was on the table. That time and time again, when faced with a particular situation, an issue, he was able to put all different types of solutions forward and find the one that would best succeed. Not necessarily what was most in line with his particular predisposition or attitude, but what would best get the job done. And so he was able to have a strategy of chesed, of kindness, of giving, of gift giving, appeasement per se, when you're trying to win over an enemy. He also had to be able to go to the completely other end of the spectrum and to prepare himself for war if that was necessary. And also to say, you know what, let me not be so much about my action, but I will turn with humility to God and see and pray. And by the way, for those that are Kabbalistically minded, that's Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferet, otherwise known as Rachamim. Chesed, kindness, gifts; Gevura, strength, preparing for war; and Tiferet, Rachamim, mercy, turning to God and throwing yourself on His mercy through prayer. And so he was able to, in a sense, cover the entire spectrum, different than his grandfather Abraham, who was pigeonholed perhaps in Chesed, and Yitzchak, who was perhaps pigeonholed in Gvura. Here you have Yaakov, who was able to exist or to play on all spectrums. And this is his great strength. In fact, it's alluded to later in the fact that he is given a new name. We say, no longer will your name be Yaakov, but it will be Yisrael. Sarkel, the Prince of God. No longer will be Yaakov, the heel, but you will be a Prince of God. And therefore no longer will your name be called Yaakov any longer. And we find that by Avraham, that his name was changed from Avram to Avraham. And we say no longer will your name be Avram, it will be Avraham. And the Talmud tells us anybody who then calls him Avram is violating this biblical premise that no longer will your name be Avram. And yet here's something interesting. When we say that about Yaakov, no longer will your name be Yaakov, but it will be Yisrael, we still call him Yaakov. And not only that, but the very next verse actually says that Yaakov went. So no longer will your name be Yaakov, and then we say, and Yaakov went. How does that make sense? The answer is because Yaakov and Yisrael depict 2 different personalities. as does Avram and Avraham. The difference is once Avram evolved into Avraham, there was no going back. But Yaakov and Yisrael each has a distinct personality that Yaakov employed when necessary. And when it was time to employ Yaakov, he was Yaakov. And when it was time to employ Yisrael, he was Yisrael and he was not Yaakov. Yisrael means the Prince of God, which means that you're involved in a sense in the decision making. You have a seat at the table. Your ideas and your understanding are in a sense part of the process of deciding what is to be done in this situation. And you're asked to bring your intellect into God's will. And that is in a sense what we do in the Talmud, and we try to understand and we try to pick apart ideas. What is it that God wants from us? How should we do it? How best to approach it? And that is Yisrael. God says, I want you to be a sarkel. I want you to be a minister at the table in deciding how the enterprise of this world moves forward. But every once in a while, you also need to remember that you are Yaakov, which means that sometimes you're not going to understand, and sometimes it's not going to make sense to you, and you still need to march forward. Be the Akev, be that foot soldier, to march forward. And the ability of Yaakov to, in a sense, be both a Sar Kel, to be that minister, and to also be that foot soldier, and his ability to employ chesed, kindness, and strength when necessary, and mercy, is what makes Yaakov such a unique character, and the ability to triumph amid tremendous adversity, and which is why we call ourselves mostly after Yaakov Avinu, of all the forefathers. We call ourselves Bnei Yisrael after Yaakov, not Bnei Avraham and not Bnei Yitzchak. Because it has always been our attitude to be a jack of all trades, or a Jacob of all trades, to do whatever is necessary to see the mission to a successful conclusion. And so also in life, this is a very important message. When you're faced with something and you have a knee-jerk reaction to just do as in a sense is you're predisposed to do, or it is in a sense you're within your nature or your element to do so, to think sometimes, is this the best solution? Or is the best solution perhaps something that is not really new for me, or a little outside of my box? And in that case, to be a Yaakov Avinu, to put every option on the table, to find the best one, and to achieve with it, and to succeed, despite whatever the challenge might be. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom, a very successful week, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.